Hey there and welcome! In this video we'll be going over Flexbox. Now, what is Flexbox and why do we need it? Before Flexbox, people used to align items with margin auto. See, it got to the left side, or float right, for example. But it was hard to center things and really align them to make them responsive. And so Flexbox was created to make proper alignments, proper responsivity, and to make the life of developers easier. You might have also encountered this one, display flex. This is what says that Flexbox is going to be active. We'll be going all over this in a minute. So with that being said, let's get started. So here in our HTML, I simply have some cards. These are from the basic portfolio site series. If you watch those videos, you recognize them. But what's important is our style.css here. Again, these are just the basic stylings. You don't have to worry about these. What we'll be working in is the card container. So these have a margin of 20 pixels. I mean, this container does, so that it's not directly at the left side or at the top. But what we'll be using is saying display and flex. Now, flex properties cannot be applied. They won't take effects unless you say display flex. This will mean that the given element is ready to use flex properties. And you can see already that it has changed our alignment. Now it has become a row. And what display flex by default does, if you apply it, is saying flex direction row. The flex direction will give you how the items should be aligned inside the container. By default it's a row, but I could also say column and back to square one where we started off. And flex direction has some other properties as well. So row and column, what you will be using the most, but there is column reverse. Before I save, notice how there is the web that code bracket icon on top. And if I now save, there will be the cloud and the code bracket will come down because we set column reverse. That will say reverse the order of the items. If I say row reverse, first of all row and then row reverse, notice how they are also changed. So the order again changed. This is the flex direction. You will be using it a lot, but that's basically wraps it up. I'll set this to row. Let's look at some other properties. For example, justify content. There are two ways you can align items in Flexbox. There is the horizontal and the vertical axis, and whether justify content manages the horizontal or the vertical axis will depend on your flex direction, because flex direction sets these axes, and if it's a row, then justify content will set the horizontal axis. If I now said center, as you can see, they got to the center. There are some other properties to this one. I could say end, and they will get to the end of the page. I could also say start, and there will be on the start. Flex start and flex end are basically the same, so you don't have to worry about that. And there are also two other properties that I'll be showing you. The one is space between. So they will use all the space between the elements, in the container element. All the space between will be used up and they will be spaced far from each other. There is also space evenly when they calculate the space available and accordingly divide it. And that's it for our justify content. The one which will set the vertical axis whenever we are at a row is going to be the align items. The align items will say, let's go to center. And of course, since it's not big enough, you won't see anything. So we'll set the width to be, I don't know, sorry, not the width, the height to be 900 pixels. You can now see that it got right to the center. You can scroll now as well. So because we've vertically aligned it to the center, it's now in the center. I could also say start here, it gets to the top, or end, and it gets to the bottom, just as before. I'll say center for now. And that's it for the align items, but let's see what happens if I change this to a column. Everything is in the center as it should, but what if I change this to start? Oh, didn't we say that justify content was for the horizontal axis? Now when you change the flex direction, the justify content and the align items will change functionality as well. Whenever there is a row, the justify will be the horizontal, the align will be the vertical, and vice versa if you are using a column. So I can align to the end this way. This is something you have to keep in mind while working with Flexbox. I stay with center center this time and change it back to a row. But as you can see, they are all clamped together. There is no space between them. So one property that's very useful for us is going to be the gap property. And I can set, for example, 10 pixel gap between the elements. And this will nicely align them. This will also work if I say a column. There. So it's very good when you need cards laid out, projects, I don't know, we use this for the about section in the portfolio. And that's basically it for the gap. Another attribute that I'll be showing you is the flex wrap. The flex wrap has 3 settings. The no wrap, this will say nothing basically. It's just the default. Wrap and wrap reverse. Wrap will, whenever I come here and let's say I want a bigger gap, like 20 pixels, I start shrinking the window. Then it starts to make it responsive because there is no more space here for another card, so it wrapped around and now it's in the bottom. If I shrink more, then you can see it becomes a row, and if I come back, it becomes a row again. So it's very useful for responsive layouts, and the wrap reverse will just simply reverse the order. So there is not much about it. As you can see in the last example, they were on top, now it's on the bottom. And if you're not fond of setting the flex wrap and the flex direction separately, you could also say flex flow. And flex flow will allow you to set the flex direction as well as the wrapping in one property, so wrap. So if I now remove this and the row, it will still work the same way because we've set flex flow. See? Or if I say wrap reverse, there you have it. Or if I say column, it again changes the layout. So you can play around with this. You do need to practice it a bit, but it's an absolutely useful tool to have in your arsenal. And so that's it for Flexbox. These are the properties I personally use. And I think it was pretty simple. If you liked the video and found it helpful, make sure to drop a like and subscribe to our channel if you'd like to see more. With that being said, I'll see you in the next one.